In Waterbury, Connecticut, a 32-year-old man rescued from a fire in his own home. The man was emaciated, weighing only 68 pounds. At the scene, first responders are shocked to learn he started the fire himself, but the reason left everyone stunned. The man claimed his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, had been keeping him imprisoned in the home for decades. Now, Kimberly Sullivan is charged with kidnapping, unlawful restraint, cruelty, and more. Tonight, the victim is speaking out for the first time through a written statement, and his stepmother's legal team issuing their own response. But first, Lori Daybell seemed to be living a happy, normal life until her world spiraled into a storm of deceit and death. By early 2019, her marriage to Charles Vallow was unraveling, damaged by Lori's entanglement with author, former gravedigger, and so-called doomsday prophet Chad Daybell. Charles confronted Lori about her infidelity and radical beliefs, but nothing helped. Then on July 11th, 2019, Charles arrived at Lori's residence in Chandler, Arizona to pick up their son, JJ. An altercation erupted, culminating in Lori's brother, Alex Cox, fatally shooting Charles. Alex claimed self-defense, and police initially believed it. In the aftermath, Lori's children disappeared. Chad's wife, Tammy, died under mysterious circumstances, and Chad and Lori celebrated their marriage in Hawaii. That is, until Tylee and JJ's remains were discovered on Chad's property. Now, Lori and Chad have both been convicted of murder in Idaho, and Lori is representing herself in her second murder trial. And tonight, we bring you the latest from the cult mom conspiracy murder case. Good evening and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Julia Janae in for Vinnie Politan. Thank you for being with us. We're following a big day out in Arizona in the case against Lori Vallow, the cult mom, Lori Daybell, as she wants to be known, because today, that breaking news, the state has rested their case in chief against Lori Daybell. Their case is over in terms of the evidence they want to present to this jury, that she committed conspiracy, meaning that litigator Lori, who is representing herself, is going to now have the chance to present evidence for the first time to this jury. Will she do it? Will she take the opportunity, or will she immediately rest as well? She doesn't have the burden in this case, and she understands how a trial goes because this isn't her first trial. But it is the first one that's about her husband of 13 years, Charles Vallow. Now, Charles was Lori's first kill, according to the prosecution, one of many that she was involved in. And taking out Charles meant taking out the protector in the family. And he was a true protector. That's what we're learning through the details in this case, that Charles was trying to make sure that things were okay, regardless of what was going on with Lori. Not Alex Cox. We know Chad and Lori called him the protector, lauded him as someone who was helping them serve the kingdom. Charles was the one who wouldn't have stood for Lori taking JJ and Tylee and traipsing off to Rexburg, Idaho, all to study under a self-appointed prophet, Chad Daybell. Charles was the one who was checking in with Brandon Boudreaux, asking him, what do you think about what's going on with my wife, your wife, who seems to be now studying under Lori, believing in these really strange prophecies. And Boudreaux, we know, would later become a victim of attempted murder. Charles even was looking out for Tammy Daybell, the wife of the man that his wife Lori was having an affair with. He tried to warn her before his death that something was amiss, something was wrong, and he wanted to share that with her. But he never got a chance to because he was killed. But with Charles out of the way, Lori and her new husband, Chad Daybell, they likely felt that the probing questions, the scrutiny, everything that Charles was trying to put into motion, that it would stop, that they could go off and live out what they called the end of times, where they were going to be the ones on top. But what they didn't count on was Charles's sister, Kay Woodcock, stepping in and stepping up to be that same protector that her brother was trying to be. Along with her husband, Larry, they started sounding the alarm until someone took notice. And that Lori likely didn't see coming. But we know what's coming soon. Lori's fate is again going to be in the hands of a jury. This jury tasked with deciding whether or not she is guilty of conspiracy to murder Charles, or if she's not guilty, if this was self-defense, or if she didn't collude with her brother. We've got all the details for you there in Arizona. So let's do this. Let's turn to our Court TV legal correspondent, Kelly Craft. She's joining us out live from Arizona. Kelly, you brought us that breaking news when you were field anchoring just moments ago that the case in chief by the state of Arizona is over.
Good evening to you, Julia. Yes, the state has rested its case and chief. We had heard rumblings of this, so this was expected. The state had Detective Duncan on the stand the entire day. Lori then conducted a cross-examination of him. Then there was a redirect. Then the state did officially rest its case and chief. Then the state did have a discussion, or the judge rather, did have a discussion with Lori to see what she was going to be doing next. She made a Rule 20 motion. Basically a judgment of acquittal, motion for a judgment of acquittal, which the judge ended up denying. So we always get an insight there as to what the state is going to argue. So the judge denied that, and now what's next? Well, the state said that it wanted to do closing arguments on Monday. The judge inside that courtroom, he was pushing to have things go forward tomorrow, but the state really said, Judge, I would prefer Monday. Lori agreed, and so that's where we stand right now here in Phoenix, Arizona. Tomorrow, we're going to go through jury instructions. The jury will not be here inside the courtroom tomorrow or Friday, but we'll be back on Monday, Julia.
You know, that's interesting that they're now going to get 2 days. They'll have really a holiday weekend, and then they come back on Monday to figure out what happens next. They likely don't know. You just mentioned they don't know what's going on with the defense case. They might be anticipating what is Lori going to say when things pass to her. But they heard a lot today, so tell us about that. The investigation into Charles's death, what were some of the major things that came out?
I thought he was really a key witness, Julia, for the state. This is Detective Nate Duncan. And so he was going through the timeline, talking about the text messages between Alex as well as Lori, and then also talking about text messages between Lori and Chad. Inside the courtroom in the gallery, there were a lot of chuckles from people that were sitting in the gallery when the state started reading some of the text messages that were being exchanged between Lori and Chad, in which he was telling Lori how crazily in love he is with her and he can't wait to be close to her. Why don't we go ahead and play a little bit of this direct examination of when the state was asking him about this very important timeline and how the state is suggesting that Lori's story just didn't add up.
So at 8:06, Alex Cox calls Lori a second time, and Charles Vallow has now been laying on the floor for at least dead for at least 17 minutes.
Correct.
Understanding that the 911 call isn't made till 8:36, Alex Cox waits another 30 minutes before he calls 911.
Yes.
Did Lori Vallow ever call 911?
No.
Neither of her calls, neither of her phones.
None. We had learned that Ned was the name of a dark spirit that had taken over Charles' body. And so in knowing this, I went through these records looking for a mention of Ned and to the reference and how it was used.
So, Julia, as this line of questioning from the state went on, this direct examination, I was taking a look at the jurors. And when the state then started talking about people being identified by the letter Z, 4 jurors at the same exact time began jotting notes feverishly, because now the state is indicating that people are being identified as zombies. At least that's according to their interpretation of the evidence and those text messages. But interesting observation to see 4 jurors, all of them immediately go and start writing notes when she was mentioning Z.
That's a great observation. We always like knowing what the jury is doing, but I can only imagine what they are thinking, Kelly, when they're hearing a term like that used inside a court of law as a defense, or perhaps even the evidence that's against Lori Daybell. We also learned something else, and I talked about this at the top of this hour, about Charles being the protector and even trying to protect Tammy Daybell in a way. And we learned about Charles finding out about the affair between his wife Lori and Chad Daybell.
Yes, that is something that this Detective Duncan, on the stand testified about. The state was asking him about this. And so the state ended up talking about their past behaviors and what they were doing in the future, how she ended up marrying Chad Daybell. This was just a few months after the shooting death of her husband, Charles Vallow. Let's play a little bit of Detective Duncan's testimony regarding this.
Did you find evidence that Charles Vallow, after discovering this email, contacted Chad Daybell?
Yes.
Did you find evidence that after Charles Vallow found this KK Walker 75 email address, that Charles Vallow contacted Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
And we have a bit of that email for you. We can put it up for our viewers. So this is going to be Charles Vallow emailing Tammy Daybell, and you can read it there on your screen, in which he is talking about various things, including, telling him who he is. He knows this is her work email, and I'll wait to send you the evidence. That is very disturbing. He says you can call or email me from the address where you can receive further information. He says, I apologize for the one that's sending this to you, but something has to be done. And he just talks about how he has some vital and disturbing information regarding his wife, Lori, and her husband, Chad Daybell.
Oh, Charles knew so much. It's chilling, Kelly, to know how much he knew prior to his death, what he was worried about, but unfortunately couldn't have predicted what was going to happen when he walked inside of that house that day. Let's talk about you've told us a lot about the prosecution. Let's talk about the defense. How did Lori do today? How was her cross-examination of this really key witness?
Julia, I felt that she was finally getting into a rhythm. We had David Bruno on last hour, and he suggested that maybe it's a little bit too late. And I do agree with his assessment of that, because today, more so than I've seen throughout her cross-examination of several of the witnesses, she was seeming to understand when the judge would say to her, for instance, the state would object, then he would say, yes, that's a compound question. And then she was able to reformulate, regroup, ask the question in a better way. But maybe it was too late, although I did feel that her cross-examination of the detective was pretty good in regard to some of the things that she was asking him as to why they didn't look at certain pieces of evidence in this case, or why they didn't feel, for instance, the testing of the bat was important, or taking Alex Cox's phone the day that Vallow was shot and killed. Let's play a bit of that testimony.
Was a copy of Alex's phone made by the Chandler Police Department?
I don't know.
You don't know?
There's so much information. I don't know whether we received his call detail records or an actual copy was made. I don't know.
So you're the case agent.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see if that was the case.
So you're the case agent, and you don't know if the person who shot my husband's phone was ever...
Yeah. At this moment, I don't recall.
So Detective Moffat would have had to get a search warrant, and then he would download it?
Based on their conversation, whether Alex would be willing to do that or whether a search warrant was needed, but that was Detective Moffat's call at that time.
And he decided not to do that?
I don't know what his process is, or his thought process.
Well, I'm saying that he did not do that, and you're the case agent now, so you would know if that was done, correct?
You're asking me to speak for Detective Moffat, whether it was done or not?
No, I'm asking you to speak as the case agent now if you know if it was done or not.
I believe it was not.
Okay. Do you think that would be important to your investigation?
Absolutely, knowing what we know now, yes.
Okay, you're a detective, right?
Correct.
You have to look at all the angles, right?
Correct.
You don't know what happened, right? You just stated that you weren't there, right?
Correct.
So wouldn't that be crucial information that the police department didn't bother to take?
Once again, I don't know what the conversation with Detective Moffat and Alex was and what his reasoning for not. Would I have taken it? Yes.
I was surprised there, Julia, that the state at that point didn't object to asked and answered, but the state didn't. And Lori, it was as if she didn't hear what he said. He was agreeing with her. The detective was agreeing with her that, yes, absolutely, that would have been important. And then she did get a chance to ask it again. And then he said, I would have done it. I would have taken his phone. So I thought that was maybe 1 point for Lori.
Yeah, well, everyone's missing objections. Maybe they're just returning the favor. She didn't object much when they were asking the questions, so they figured they'd let her have that one. Who knows? Sure. Kelly Craft, thank you so much for the latest there in Phoenix, Arizona. Let's talk about this case and the new developments with our live think tank. They are here in the studio. We have with us criminal defense attorney Josh Schiffer, criminal defense attorney and law professor Meg Schiffler, and Lawrence Zimmerman, criminal defense attorney as well, with us as well. So good to see all three of you. The state has rested their case in chief. We have all of the evidence, and if Lori doesn't put on a case, then that's it. That's what the jury has. Do they have an airtight case against Lori Vallow Daybell, or are we going to go into deliberations being not sure about what they'll say? Josh, I'll start with you.
You know, I'm very impressed at what the state has put together, and if I was going to really summarize, it's the restraint that has impressed me the most, because everyone was expecting this case to be filled with passion. These are children's deaths. There's so many other cases. There's so much background story. And I know if I was a state prosecutor, I'd be really concerned about allowing the defendant representing herself to kind of hijack a trial, turn it into, and Meg and I talked about this previously, being almost a preaching venue. To be more apostle.
Has she done that? Has she been preaching?
She hasn't. And that's what we were literally talking about, was the restraint the state's continuing to show, because she's shown restraint. Yes. And that feeds directly into those objections, not taking them, because that would change the perspective of the jury, might add a little bit that's just unnecessary. So why would the state object when letting Lori get her questions out is serving the state perfectly well?
And it seems like she may not call any witnesses. It sounds like she wanted to rest tomorrow. They're going to wait to do everything on Monday. If you're the judge, are you making sure that she knows what she's doing and knows that she has the opportunity because she's a pro se defendant?
Well, yeah, you have to make sure that her appellate rights are there, and that's why you usually have a standby counsel who is sitting there behind her and making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And she has done, I mean, a pretty good job in the sense of a pro se attorney. And the state and the judge have really been professional as well. I don't know if I could be as patient when you're trying to explain relevance or explain what makes a witness be witness or explain basic hearsay. I would lose my mind so fast, and that's why I'm not a judge. But I have been very impressed with everybody in the courtroom, including Lori, where everybody's just kept it to the facts, kept it simple. Now we're getting onto zombies and marking people as Z's. You know, there are weird aspects of this case, and nothing has ever gotten to be kind of histrionic or anything yet.
Yeah, Lawrence, that part that Kelly said they were frantically, as far as jurors, writing about zombies. If she had representation, do you think there's any way that a defense attorney could mitigate that or normalize that in any way?
No.
Short answer.
Easy answer. No, I mean, it's a pretty strange thing.
Yeah. What do you think about this jury? Do you think they are going to be able to find her guilty, even though they're in a vacuum? They don't know everything that we know in terms of
Supposedly.
her kids and everything that she's done in the past and been convicted of.
I mean, listen, she's representing herself. That's always a tough road for a pro se defendant but you know, she's getting a fair trial. And as Meg was saying, it's just tough as a judge, but the judge is being very patient. And, you know, it's weird when the defendant is cross-examining the witness, like the police officer who's, you know, after her. It's just a very weird dynamic. So it seems like she's doing a decent job from what I've watched.
Fascinating to watch. We're going to keep talking about this case. Hang tight. Think Tank is staying here. We have to get to a break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the life and death of someone we heard about today, Tammy Daybell. Plus, here's what's coming up next on VPI. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, Eric and Lyle Menendez have spent 30 years behind bars for murdering their own parents. But now a judge will decide if they should have a second chance at life on the outside. If their release is granted, what will life be like for the Menendez brothers? We investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, Let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Did you ever consider not taking her, not killing her? You never intended to let her go.
Never.
Pure evil.
Interview with a Killer season premiere. Encore presentation tonight at 10 on Court TV.
They were saying that Tammy was supposed to die on her trip to Utah. She was supposed to have he had seen it in a vision that she was going to die in a car accident in the way there, or something was going to happen that she was going to pass away. And then when she didn't pass away, then what they were saying was that she actually did pass away, but what happened was that she was taken over by an evil spirit, and then they were that she had become a zombie. Okay, so in the back of my mind, here I am thinking, okay, they said the same thing about Charles, right? And then Charles ended up being shot.
That voice was Zulema Pestenes. She was Alex Cox's widow, and she's telling investigators about Chad and Lori's teachings. She was a part of their cult. She believed in the doomsday teachings of Chad Daybell, teachings that indicated that both Charles Vallow and Chad's wife Tammy were possessed by zombies. We're hearing them inside of the courtroom referred to as Z. That's what was in the text messages. And we know that after Charles was deemed to be possessed by this cult couple, Chad and Lori, that he was shot and killed by Alex Cox, someone that Chad had deemed a protector of what they were trying to do. Tammy Daybell's death happened months later on October 19th of 2019. And after her body was exhumed, long after she had been deemed just having died of natural causes, they determined that she died from asphyxiation. But 10 days before that, 10 days before she died in her sleep in her own bed, Tammy called 911, and she was reporting something suspicious that happened to her that she believed involved a paintball gun.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office.
Hi, I need to report something.
Okay, go ahead. What's the address?
Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East, the corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway.
Is it a suspicious person?
Yes.
Okay, what was he wearing?
He was all dressed in black, and he had a ski mask on.
And he's at the blinking light now is where you saw him?
No, he's gone now, because I pulled up into our driveway, and I was getting stuff out of the back seat of my car, and suddenly he was there, and he had a paintball gun, and he was and like he was going to shoot at me, and I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing, and then he just kept doing it, so I yelled for my husband, and then he took off running around the back of my house.
Let's bring back in our think tank to talk about where we are in this case and how important Tammy Daybell is to all of this. We have Lawrence Zimmerman with us, Meg Strickler with us, and Josh Schiffer. Lawrence, Tammy is someone who has already gotten justice in the Idaho courts. Chad has been charged and convicted with her death. Lori has been charged and convicted with her death, but we're hearing her name in this trial. And now these jurors know that she may have been under the impression that her husband was having an affair. Your thoughts on her case as it relates to the Arizona case?
I mean, having an affair is obviously motivation for someone to die, right? So I guess I'm not really sure how much the jury's heard about any of that. I assume not much has been let in or they know nothing, but who knows what they know publicly, right? They're not supposed to.
Oh, no, you don't think they're researching this case, do you?
I don't know.
Never.
No,
I have to believe, because even in this case, we've had jurors come forward to say, wait, someone did send me a YouTube a while ago. So they seem to be honest. Another one reported that, someone told them something, but it's all been smoothed over, and the judge didn't think that it's something that's impacting them. But Meg, your thoughts on where we are in the case now? I know we had to get to a break, but they're in a vacuum. They don't know about everything that happened in Idaho. They don't know about this paintball gun situation, which we now know was Alex Cox shooting at Tammy but missing.
Well, I think that the paintball thing, I'm pretty sure they would never know about. But the two children being killed in Idaho was very pervasive in the news. It's very difficult for me to believe they didn't know anything about it ever. And so and the Chad Daybell and this whole cult storyline, it's difficult for me to believe that they didn't know some aspect of it. And then also it's difficult for me to believe that they go home at night and never look at anything on the internet. I'm just sorry, it's 2025, we're addicted to our phones. Even though the judge admonishes them every night to say, don't look at this story, don't look anything up, you're not supposed to investigate anything. I always question in this day and age, even in any jury trial I'm doing, it's not occurring.
Sure, if you're an attorney trying this case, defending the case, then you definitely need to be cognizant of it.
Yeah, and I really want to stress what Meg's third point was. It's the what do they know now? I'll give it that there's a huge percentage of America that has no idea about modern crime. It's tough for us to imagine because we live this, and being involved in the criminal justice system is part of our daily lives. But for big chunks of America, they don't watch news. They hide in their other, you know, bandwidth entertainment and information. So I get that they wouldn't know it before, but every day they're just picking up a phone. And stories are pervasive. Media is pervasive. Even if you're just looking at the sports section, you may see the local news. And locally, this is the biggest story out there. It'd be very difficult for them to say they are existing in a vacuum during the trial.
So what we're talking about is a part of the case that's probably not as pervasive in the headlines, and that's Tammy Daybell, what happened to her with the paintball gun. You really have to do a lot of digging to find out this, but I want to play this piece of sound that has to do with Zulema Pestana. So she's being interviewed about her involvement in this cult, and you have to look at it side by side. We know what Tammy Daybell was dealing with, what she called 911 for, but Zulema talks about a casting that happened. So this cult deciding that Tammy was a zombie, and they did a casting on her the same day. Also, Lori then took a phone call and said, this idiot can't do anything by himself. Take a listen.
Did you ever participate in a casting on Tammy?
Yes, once.
Do you recall when that was?
I believe it was October 9th of 2019. Much later, I put two and two together that was the same night that someone had attempted to shoot Tammy.
After the casting, did you hear Lori on the phone?
Yes, she was on a phone call afterwards.
How did she appear?
She was extremely angry. She was irate. I had never seen her that upset. She was like scary angry. And she was calling whoever she was on the phone with, she was calling this person names like moron, idiot, stupid, and very, very, very angry.
And after she got off that phone call, did she say anything to you?
Yeah, right after she hung up the phone, she said, idiot, can't do anything by himself.
Lauren Zimmerman, why do you think Lori Daybell in this Arizona trial didn't decide to just point the finger at her idiot brother, if that's who she's talking about, to say he's the one who did this, I didn't conspire with him? Why is she sticking with self-defense?
Well, I guess it could be a couple reasons. A, she doesn't have a good lawyer. and B, you know, maybe she just want to throw her brother under the bus.
She's her own lawyer, Meg. I mean, would standby counsel have perhaps said, do you think if she had an attorney, would they have said, look, point the finger at Alex, he's dead?
Yeah, but the whole thing is she's charged with conspiring with Alex, and so how do you do that? If it's going to be a dicey situation to say he did it. Oh, but yeah, it's my brother, but I don't want. Oh, I didn't have anything to do with it. This whole storyline, her hands are so filthy with this whole storyline. It's very difficult to extricate herself from it.
And I think we're really going to get some of that answer when she has this moment to speak to the jury and present her own case. We keep wondering, what's the point of this? What's her big reveal? Where's it going to come out? Because we all know it's in there. We followed all of these cases for so long. We know there should be a point to her presentation and her defense. I just don't know what it is. And I think we're going to get that answer.
Maybe in closing arguments,
Yeah.
closing arguments that are going to start on Monday right here on Court TV. You'll be able to see it. The think tank's going to stick around. We have to get to a break, but when we come back, we're shifting gears to this story. A man who accuses his stepmother of holding him captive for decades. He's breaking his silence for the first time. We have all the details.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
How many other people? Listen,
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
yes.
come out. Come down the road. Come on, come on.
That was body camera footage from a fire that led to the rescue of a 32-year-old man who said to authorities once he was rescued that he had been held against his will inside of that home for decades. And the person that kept him there had been his father, who was now deceased, but his stepmother was still there. And tonight we have updates on the case of Connecticut versus Kimberly Sullivan, that stepmother. Joining us now with the latest on the details in the case and breaking news that we've gotten today, Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas is with us. Cody, we understand that the victim is now speaking out for the first time.
Yes, Julia, that is correct. And of course, this is the first public statement from this victim of alleged abuse for 20 years, domestic abuse and captivity. Now, of course, that victim accuses his stepmother and defendant in this case, Kimberly Sullivan. He accuses her of being at fault for this abuse for 20 years that began when he was pulled out of school at around age 11 up until 2 months ago, Julia, in February when he was around 31 years old. That is when he intentionally lit the house on fire so first responders could come to the house and discover him in captivity. Now, he says he released this statement yesterday in an effort to regain control and autonomy over his life. Take a listen to it.
Please call me S. This is not the name given to me by my parents when I was born. I am choosing a new name for myself, and I will use that name as I reclaim control over my life and my future. My name is my choice, and it is the first of many choices I will make for myself now that I am free. I am a survivor of more than 20 years of captivity and domestic abuse. I was held prisoner in my home from the time I was taken out of the 4th grade at age 11 until 2 months ago at age 31 when I purposely set the fire that helped set me free. I am speaking out today to begin the process of reclaiming my life and to have my say in how my story is told. I am much better and stronger than I was the day the first responders carried me out of my home. I am beyond grateful for the care I have received since then. To all the healthcare professionals who have helped and nurtured me, thank you. In addition to all of your care, I appreciated the chance to have my first ever birthday party to celebrate turning 32. I also want to thank the first responders, the law enforcement investigators, and everyone who is working to hold those responsible for my abuse accountable. Thank you to everyone at Safe Haven Waterbury and everyone who has given to the GoFundMe page that will help cover some of the overwhelming expenses I will face in the weeks, months, and years to come. I am grateful to the conservator and my attorney who will help guide me through the legal process ahead. They have been invaluable to me, and I am grateful for their tireless support. Much has already been said that tells part of the story of the abuse I endured. Someday, perhaps my whole story will be told. I ask everyone involved in my story to fully cooperate with the authorities who are helping me seek justice for these crimes. I also ask the public and the media to respect those investigations and my privacy as this process plays out. This isn't just a story, it's my life. Thank you all for your thoughts and messages, your support, and your continued prayers as I recover.
In Julia, according to police documents, this victim reports some very gross allegations regarding the extensive efforts he had to go to use the bathroom when he was allegedly held captive in that room, and now he had to drink water from a toilet bowl because he says he didn't get enough water. And of course, Kimberly Sullivan has since been arrested. She was arrested in March in relation to these charges. She's facing assault, kidnapping, and cruelty charges in relation to this alleged abuse.
Cody, it's so heartbreaking, but it's at least a little bit encouraging to hear that he's doing well now. Stand by. I want to get a reaction from our think tank. Still with us, Lawrence Zimmerman, Meg Strickler, and Josh Schiffer. Lawrence, this is beyond heartbreaking when we know what happened to him. And even hearing about his recovery, he's reclaiming his life. He hasn't had a life, it sounds like, since he was 11 years old.
I have a million questions. Like, who did nobody know for 21 years where he went to, what happened, and nobody was in the house, said, hey, Kimberly, how's your kid doing? I mean, what's been going on all these years? What's he been doing? They've been bringing him food. How's he not been able to get out? He's been beaten every day. It's a very bizarre story. Like I said, I have 1,000 things I want answers to. I'm not disbelieving. It's mind-boggling to try to figure out how someone could be in a basement for 21 years and nobody else would know.
68 pounds, Meg, is what he weighed when they found him. Yeah. I mean, what do you worry about the most when you have someone who has missed that much of his life outside of a home?
Well, you know, when Cody said he's recovering, this will be an impact on the rest of his life, and he will probably not be able to process all of it. It's too many years of abuse, that every aspect of him. So but I really love that statement, because he's getting his name. He's taking steps towards a positive trajectory finally, and it's going to take years and years and years. And I hope that other people don't somehow take what his story is and somehow exploit him further. I hope that he gets the physical help he needs. He's going to need rehab to be able to get those muscles to work again. And then the mental part I'm having a lot of trouble processing that myself.
It was a really articulate letter for someone who hasn't been in school since they were 11 years old, but he's got a lot of people around him.
And that's the silver lining, really, is that I don't believe he wrote that letter. I don't believe he could have that kind of education unless he had just self-studied and been
Maybe
provided
his mom gave
books.
him good education in the basement.
You never know. Homeschooling's popular these days.
Mitigation.
But really, what I think is good is that he's got a team. Having that conservator in place, unbelievably important for people that don't understand. Conservatives have gotten a bad rap, but really they serve an important purpose to protect people who deserve and need protection. And anyone who's gone through this kind of trauma and abuse needs that professional, independent, and I mean professional. These are licensed professionals that have been appointed by a court system that cares to help him guide the recovery, because the recovery is going to be the rest of his life. He's basically a living psychology experiment.
It's major. You know, he didn't name his stepmother in that statement at all. He said those who were responsible, holding those accountable. Let's bring Cody back in, because Cody, we understand that the stepmother's attorney put out a statement. Is it in response to this statement?
It absolutely is, Julia, and not only are they denying the criminal aspect of it all, they're pretty much denying that any of it even happened, alluding to the fact that this victim could be making this entire story up. Now, we did have her attorney on the program earlier this month, a few weeks ago. First, take a listen to what he had to say at that time.
My client denies having done anything wrong. The defense will be that this didn't happen. The father is the one that dictated how his son would be raised. This was not my client's biological son. She did not make the determination as to schooling, being pulled out of school. A lot has been put on her, and that is simply not the case. We anticipate the evidence that will come out at trial will show that he is the one that made the decisions for his son. He's 32 years old. She could not control whether he took care of himself properly or not. He was 32 years old. What I can tell you is she denies ever restraining him. She denies ever locking him in a room. She denies ever depriving him of any of these opportunities. When the police went in that home, there was food in the cupboards. There was food in the refrigerator. My understanding is he had access to this. What evidence of restraint do we have? We have exterior locks on all the outside doors. There's no chains, there's no bars, there's no handcuffs, there's no physical marks showing he's been restrained. There's not even an allegation of physical violence to restrain him.
And Julia, Sullivan's attorney echoes some of those same sentiments in the written statement released today in response to the victim's statement yesterday. The defense statement says, in part, The worst thing that can happen to a human being in this life is to be the victim of a heinous crime. Nearly its equivalent is the horror of being falsely accused. It makes the accused an object of hate, who is disparaged and cast from society. It provokes a lynch mob mentality. The accuser's public narrative put forth by his handlers lacks both specifics and credibility. It appears timed to sway public opinion, and its only purpose can be to poison the well of a future jury panel rather than seek justice through proper legal channels. As Ms. Sullivan's attorney, I'm obliged to denounce it as an unsavory tactic filled with half-lies and distorted facts, prejudice wielded like a weapon, and a rush to judgment prioritized over truth. And Julia, her attorney, goes on to say that this case is far from over. The evidence is still flooding in, and they actually look forward to their day in court. They look forward to being in trial to present their case.
It feels scathing, Cody, in the way that you just read
Absolutely.
that response. Thank you for that report. Let's bring back in the think tank. Lawrence, he called the people, the attorney called the people who are with this child, well, not a child anymore, but a child victim, according to the allegations, handlers.
Well, I always do my best every time I'm here to support the defense and defense lawyers. But here's what I'm going to say. I don't know anything about this case yet, other than what we've heard publicly. But I think maybe the better angle will be less is more. And secondly, maybe if Ms. Sullivan, maybe she was abused as well from her husband and scared of him, and he was threatening her, and there's a lot of reasons why she didn't go rescue the kid because her life was in danger. Maybe that'd be more helpful to the defense, other than he's 68 pounds at 32 years old and was pulled out of school in 4th grade living in your house. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, the tone, Meg, the tone of the response.
This is the best thing to do. When I have a case of any sort, I don't go to the press. I don't go to the press. I don't go to the press. Shut up, shut up, shut up, and shut up. And I would never disparage the victim. That was disparaging the victim. That's not appropriate, and it could be used against him in the sense of you're trying to sway either which way, because that guy is trying to sway public opinion. That's what he's doing there, and I don't think it's okay.
Josh, 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, and Meg's right. Meg's telling you what the traditional pathway would be. In this new era, going out on this aggressive attack, attacking a victim in the press before we've had the investigation that we so necessarily, that is a bold choice, but very popular here recently.
That is all the time we have for now.
Bold
Great discussion from all of you today. Josh Schiffer, Meg Strickler, and Lawrence Zimmerman, thank you so much for being here. We do have to get to a break. When we come back, don't go anywhere, because I'll reveal something else you need to know. And here's a look at what's coming up in the next hour on VPI. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, Eric and Lyle Menendez were born into wealth.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Coming up next, only on Court TV.
Did you ever consider not taking her? Not killing her? You never intended to let her go.
Never.
Pure evil.
Interview with a Killer. Season premiere. Encore presentation tonight at 10 on Court TV.
Welcome back. It's now time for us to reveal something else you need to know tonight. It's a teen who was charged with a deadly track meet stabbing. It's something that so many people have been talking about online. He's been released from jail. This is Karmelo Anthony. He's 17 years old, and he was released from the Collin County Jail in Texas on Monday. Now, Anthony was charged with murdering Austin Metcalf. This is at a track meet that happened in April. And the judge in the case yesterday reduced that $1 million bond that he was initially being held on to $250,000. He was then able to post that bail. Now, the victim in this case, his parents said that he died in his twin brother's arms. It's a tragic case, but the teen is alleging self-defense. He told police immediately that he was protecting himself when this altercation happened at this school, where he was sitting under a tent, getting out of the rain, and apparently there was this altercation, but he was carrying a knife at the time on school property. We will keep you updated on how this case develops. And before we go tonight, there's a picture that I want to show you. this is a child who is missing. This is Damien Joseph Hamrick. Damen is 15 years old. He was last seen April 9th in Nebraska. Damen may have traveled to Omaha. If you have any information about where he is tonight, please call the Sarpy County Sheriff's Office in Nebraska. The number is on your screen, 402-593-4111, or you can always call 1-800-THE-LOST. Let's see if we can get him to a safe place tonight. Stay with us. We have another hour of live true crime coming up next on Vinnie Politan Investigate.